Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SoundCloud Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's here, Missing, available on Amazon, paperback and ebook, coming soon, Missing 2, Double Expense, Double Fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by A Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of King David, including 30 exquisite paintings and King David Psalms. Join the journey with David and his journey through Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Check on Amazon. Also, the Mike Wagner Show on 50 podcast platforms. Heard in 100 countries. Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, YouTube, and more. And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, and more. We're here with the amazing, critically acclaimed author based in Spokane, Washington, award-winning teacher, PhD in English literature and cultural studies, 41 years of teaching, focused on student learning and issues and implementing educational programs at local national levels. He's got a new book out, which is a riveting portrait of characters that's left behind by the American dream and provide a glimpse of various issues that are hitting hard today in American communities. The book is called Whiskey Rebel. Live, ladies and gentlemen, plus dudes in beautiful downtown Spokane, Washington. The amazing, critically acclaimed author, award-winning teacher, and the book is called Whiskey Rebel, the multi-ton, Jeffrey Dunn. Jeffrey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike. Good to be here, sir.
And it's great to have you on board as well, too. So you're a critically acclaimed author based in Spokane, Washington. You're a award-winning teacher. You have a PhD in English literature and cultural studies. You've been teaching 41 years, and it's basically focused on student learning issues and implementing education programs at local national levels. And you've also featured NPR and Medium, and your cultural fiction works, Washington State Book Award, and surreal fiction in Little Spokane. And also, you've also been a number as well, too, that your new book is a riveting portrait at local national levels behind the American dream, providing a glimpse of various issues hitting hard in American communities with a dark sense of hopelessness. The book is called Whiskey Rebel. Before getting to that, Jeffrey, tell us how you first got started.
How I first got started. You talking about writing,
Uh,
living?
just something all the way back, way back, Sherman, way
Way
back.
back, way back. Well, I was born in near Chicago, Illinois, in Wheaton, Illinois. The height of the baby boom, they had no room for me, and I was told at the hospital, I was told that instead of the usual crib or place where you put infants, they put me in a Buster Brown shoebox. So that says a lot. And lived there for 5 years, and parents moved to Pittsburgh. I grew up in Pittsburgh. My family's all Midwesterners. I'm the only one who claims Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, um, which was a lot more diverse, which for me, was a very, very good thing. And graduated from high school outside of Pittsburgh, and ended up teaching in Catholic schools, parochial school, Central Catholic High School for 12 years in downtown Pittsburgh. Boys in ties, 1,100 boys in ties and guys in robes, and I was a lay teacher, taught English there. Met my wife at the University of Pittsburgh. I was easily bored, so I went to the University of Pittsburgh so they give me a reading list. And I took a class, then I took another class, and I took another class, and eventually it all ended up with a PhD. Worked on a William Burroughs, the man who wrote Naked Lunch, PhD there, and met my wife. And our first child, she said there's better places to live, so out to the Northwest we came, to first to the West Side, and it was too dark for her, too foggy. And then we moved to Spokane, where it's sunny. Spokane Salish for children of the sun. So better place to be. I've written my whole life, since 14 and on. But enter school teaching takes a lot of energy. So that was a side light. And then when I retired 5 or 6 years ago, now I could get serious and take all those manuscripts and start cranking out a few books. So there we go, from Radio Free Olympia to Wildcat to Whiskey Rebel this May.
That
That's
is
it.
certainly interesting what you have. And what is that one exact precise moment that simply influenced you into what you do in the rest of your career?
Oh, wow. Well, right off the bat, when I was in ninth grade, I didn't like school. Didn't like it at all. Didn't know I was dyslexic. I'm blessedly mildly so. Makes me creative, but doesn't completely disable my spelling or keep me from reading because I make movies into or make books into movies in my head. Um, but my English teacher in ninth grade read Richard Brodigan to us and Watermelon Sugar. And when my brain got a hold of that, because it's very visual, very wild, very sort of magical realism, I said, "You can do that? That's interesting." So I just started writing. He had us write us a write something in response. I wrote a short story, read it to the class, and it just went from there. I wanted to be a vet, but I couldn't. I knew I'd never get through biochem, so I fell back on the English side of things. And um, being an English teacher will allow you to feed yourself. So took care of, and my best times are with high school kids. So that's really where I wanted to be with high school kids, and really focused on learning issues from especially dyslexia, but ADHD, um, high functioning autism, um, and the like, and trying to get them through high school so they could graduate, deal with reading issues and writing issues and all those sorts of things. See if you could break that cycle of failure that kids start to do right about middle school.
Okay. And also, would that qualify like maybe special ed or anything like that too? That's made me kind of think in a sense.
No, absolutely. So these are kids who traditionally don't have IEPs, aren't in special education. And I actually taught the WEA, which was the Washington Education Association, gave me an award working with a special ed teacher for a mixed class, where
Hmm.
we tried that out for a year, and she decided that she really wanted more control, so she went back to what she was doing. Um, and so these are kids trying to sort out the difference. And I would say, I mean, use IQ tests, use all sorts of things to tell the difference. But with a reading test, I found at the high school level in ninth grade that if students had a fourth grade reading level or lower,
Oh my
chances
goodness.
are they need an IEP. If they were in fifth grade or above, and those are fifth grades 4 years below grade level, we could make 2 years progress in a year. I had kids that could make 4 years progress because they had the apparatus. They just hadn't been taught in such a way that their brains could respond. And suddenly we go from fifth grade to eighth grade to ninth grade. And if you got an eighth grade reading level, you can graduate from high school. Um,
Hmm.
be nice if you can do better, but if you can get to eighth grade, you can get by and get out the door. So
Hmm.
that's what.
I think it seems like a lot of people seem to take that route and everything like that. Anything eighth grade, you can pretty much, go from there. And of course, you've written some books and you've gotten involved with reading and everything. Who are some of your favorite authors and writers and your favorite books growing up?
Ah, yes. So I mentioned Richard Brodigan, and I finally started to grow past Richard a little bit. He was not a lot of people know Richard anymore, unless you're an oldie like me. Um, but he was quite the San Francisco. He was born in Tacoma, but quite the San Francisco writer, a late Beat generation guy who got adopted by the hippies, which drove him nuts because he didn't consider himself a hippie. But there was just a freedom and an imagination in his writing, and a voice like nobody else's that I kind of glommed onto. But from there, just in high school, Kurt Vonnegut, uh, they were big. Cat's Cradle, Slaughterhouse Five, that was a big thing. Um, and beyond that, um, who am I trying? Tom Robbins, who's a even though he was born in the Carolinas, I mean he just died this year. He lived in Seattle, and so he became a Northwest writer, even if he didn't start out there. Love his work. Love Another's Roadside Attraction, Jitterbug Perfume, and then the one that was made into a terrible movie. What's the one with the young lady with the big? It's the hitchhiking girl with the giant thumbs, and I can't. Dyslexic me, I'm bad at names and I'm bad at dates, and I can't just
Mm.
pull that name up.
The
So there
hitchhiking
we
girl
go.
with thumbs. That's in the movie trailer, the picture, hitchhiking girl with thumbs.
Yeah, so you're trying to remember it too. Um,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Not raising
Even
Arizona.
cowgirls get the blues. There we go.
That's the
Even
one. Yes,
cowgirls
I was
get the
thinking.
blues.
Got it. Yes,
The
yes.
movie
Oh
was
my gosh.
absolutely awful, but the book is a joy. The book is way fun to read. So they tried and they really failed with that one.
Hmm. And go ahead. I was going to mention some movies that were great books and made terrible movies, but you're going to say something.
No, no, go ahead. I want to hear. I
No,
want to hear your list. Go
no,
for it.
no. I was just trying to think of one that was like a really good book, but the movie version was lousy, and I think it was oh, what was it? Not Hitchhiker's Galaxy. It was the something keepers. It was the Highlander. That was one. I think that might have
Okay.
been a novel, yes, but it turned it. I tried to a movie. It's like ugh, awful. Oh my
Got
god.
it. Got it. Very good. Now, what I do is I read an awful lot of nonfiction because what I'm looking for is history, um, natural history, geology. Just finished a book on vultures. Finished a book on dragonflies, and what it does is it feeds my imagination, and then I take all those facts, and then my brain is just something that it does. Decides on what happens if you get a couple of characters in this setting and where can I go from there? So yeah, Barry Lopez, love that. Terry Tempest Williams, Annie Dillard um, is awful wonderful. Bern Heinrich's my favorite. A German man who ended up in the United States who has is just wrote maybe my favorite nonfiction book, which is about ravens, and he tries to answer the question whether ravens are moral creatures. Um, he's a he's a cognitive. He's a serious scientist. So he lived with ravens and raised them from chicks, and in the process of telling all these stories about living with these birds, answers the question that can they make moral decisions, which he decides at the end they can.
That's interesting. I didn't know a bird of a particular genre can make a moral decision like a raven. That you think of ravens, always attacking, quote the Raven, nevermore. Of course, the Baltimore football team, that's all I think about.
Exactly.
So I have that. Yeah. But I guess I kind of thinks about it. You also, read about giraffes, and I think there was also what was that other creature you wrote about or you read? What was that one?
um, Vultures.
Vultures. That was the one. Okay. So were you gravitated towards animals at that time too, or just a fascination of them?
Oh no, yes, I was. I wanted to be a vet. Um, and my oldest son tried a little vet tech education, and he got disappointed because he found out it's more about the owners than it is about the pets. So there we go. But yeah, absolutely. And so where we live, we have a resident ravens who live eh, quarter of a mile from where we do, and we see them traveling back and forth over the road, feeding family, doing what ravens do because their brain's twice as big as a crow. So they're quite intelligent. They look you right in the eye when they see you and size you up. Um, yeah, all of those things. I mean, we have deer, we have moose, we have bear. Hear the coyotes at night, and then and we're only. I mean, we're just on the edge of the city of Spokane, but you wouldn't kind of know it where we are with the big ponderosa pines around us and Douglas firs.
Hmm. And that too as well too. And plus you have a couple of books as well too with Radio Free Olympia and Wildcats. And it's one of the subjects of animals somehow. We'll get to that along with Risky Weather with Jeffrey Dunn. But first listen to the Mike Wagner Show, the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SoundWeb Studios. Visit online at SoundWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson Zia. If you love fast paced mysteries, you love Missing by Mia Molson Zia, available on Amazon, paperback, and ebook. Missing is fast paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon, paperback, and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson Zia's got great reviews. And Evil Evan endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassie, Forrest Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today before it goes missing by Mia Molson Zia, available on Amazon. Coming soon, Missing 2 by Mia Molson Zia, double the expense, double the fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by a Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including 30 exquisite paintings and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives new perspective of the a life of David and the Psalms he wrote as a time of a shepherd growing up and complex yet turbulent relationship with King Saul. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, hope, and more. Check out the Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, 50 podcast platforms, heard in over 100 countries. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and check us out on any platform. Get your interviews, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Apple Music, and more. Take us with you on any mobile device. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast, t-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson for great books, merchandise, and more. And support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. We're here with amazing, critically acclaimed author based in Spokane, Washington, award-winning teacher Jeffrey Dunn here on the Mike Wagner Show. Before we talk about Whiskey Rebel, you did Radio Free Olympia and Wildcat. And tell us about those.
Radio Free Olympia. I started that 20 years ago. I was living on the Olympic Peninsula, and if anyone's been to the Olympic Peninsula, it's a magical, scary place. There aren't a lot of roads. It's logging roads and whatever. There's the Olympic National Park, the Olympic National Forest, with one highway 101 that goes all the way around it, and not much in between. Um, and so we moved there from Pittsburgh, and the culture shock, and it was called a nature shock, um, was huge. At the beginning of the book, I just described on our little we rented a little logger house in Elma, Washington, and standing on the porch, and it was like 1,000 frogs. You were overwhelmed by the sex song of little froggies out there. And what was behind that? It's just darkness and frog sex, and it was crazy.
Frog sex,
So
I love.
no, absolutely. And so as I taught kids there who were quite feral, many of them lived in the woods, and school was not second nature, even though they'd been going to school for 14, 15 years. Um, I love them all dearly. They were all wildly creative and very untutored, very very lightly socialized. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
So at one point, I just started. I wanted to write something that, like James Joyce did, with trying to give you the voices of Dublin in Ulysses, and I wanted to do something that had the peninsula speak. And so, how do you do that? And so, I just started writing and writing, which is kind of my method anyway. But different voices came to me. One was a character named Raven, who ends up being the kind of the master of ceremonies of the book. Um, but it's done in a male female fashion, where the odd chapters are a young man who, as an infant, washes up on the beach and is taken in by an itinerant logger who lives in an old logging railroad car, and in the middle of nowhere, and doesn't the guy doesn't tell anybody he's raising this child. He just takes him in. And when the man dies at 15, or when the young man's 15, he goes into Aberdeen, Washington, which is where Kurt Cobain grew up, and nobody has much to say, including Kurt, about Aberdeen.
Mhm.
But he ends up with a pirate radio transmitter and decides to hike east to west across the Olympic Peninsula, and he broadcasts the spirits of the Olympics folklore characters more voices, people who have died, um, all sort historical with Raven overhead following him as he goes. And so those are all the odd number chapters. And the even number chapters are a young woman who lives on what's called Grace Harbor on the Hump Tulips River, which is a real river. It's just a wonderful name, Hump Tulips. And she has a cranberry farm she inherited, and she starts a women's roadhouse called Wild Sisters. And she takes in broken women and kind of creates a convent. It's this
Hmm.
women's all women's roadhouse. And of course, she's writing a poetry journal, and it's not poetry like it's poetry you can't read. It's prose, but it looks like poetry, and just telling the story of starting this roadhouse and the women who come. And eventually, she picks up his signal, and that's where I'll stop, because of course, it's a novel, so we got young woman, young man. They've connected through the radio waves, and where do we go from there with all the different voices on the peninsula? So, uh, my developmental editor was an ex. I was looking for somebody not to help me with the fiction side, but to help me with the nonfiction, so to speak. I wanted to feel like it's a walk through the Olympic Peninsula, like it was real. And she lived in Seattle and was a ex national park ranger, and so she walked with the book, so to speak, walked the
Mm.
trails, and then made sure that everything was true to life, that it was like you were there, on the peninsula in this magical, realistic world with realism, but the magical all applied over the top of it. So it's 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 quite a creation. I'm pretty happy with that. It took 20 years to get to the point that I could get the whole thing to make sense. Uh, it was a lot of balls in the air, and a number of critics said I didn't believe that he could keep all those balls in the air, and then at the end they wouldn't just fall to the floor. But every critic said, "Oh my God, he did it! Good for him! It actually makes sense at the end." So
Mhm.
that's that book. Takes that one takes a little explanation.
Well, that's okay. I mean, you did a great job with that. Makes you want to pick up a book and read, especially being Radio Free Olympia. You also got Wildcat as well, too, and tell us about
Yes.
that.
So that one's much as hard as Radio Free Olympia is. This one's much simpler. It was a thought experiment. Um, when I was 65, I decided, since I grew up in Pittsburgh, what would it be like if I left Spokane and I moved back to a little Rust Belt town along something like the Allegheny River? I grew up very close to a little Rust Belt town that was called Brayburn. And I used Google Maps to kind of as a map, and Brayburn had an old steel mill and had a coal mine that no longer is shut down, but there was a coal mine and has a dam and so forth, so on a river and all that stuff. What would happen if I moved back there? And it's a fictional memoir of somebody like me moving back there and discovering a place that is on the one hand in the present undergoing a fairly magical transformation. It's become a sustainable place that's overcome its capitalist technological sins that it had to live through. Um, where everybody it's much more community. He moves into the old hotel, which is now essentially a communal living and dining space, although the houses are still there too. And then he needs to deal with all the demons of when he was there when he was in high school, and of course he had to have a girlfriend and he left her there, and of course she's still there when he returns. She
Oh,
went
wow.
somewhere in between, but she's still there. And will they see each other? Will they get to, I mean, it's all that sort of novelistic stuff, but it's the gritty realism of the Appalachian Rust Belt in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s in Pittsburgh. 20, let's see, 25 steel mills shut down and
Wow.
100,000 people left. And I was teaching at Central Catholic High School at the time, and I was shocked that there was so little unrest. Somebody put a dead fish in in some um, steel owners mailbox, or or somebody disrupted a Presbyterian church dinner. But other than that, um, the city went down without a fight with all of that unemployment and everything that happened. And I wanted to deal with that and in this book to deal with that change and come out of the other end with something more positive than what was so dark at the time.
hmm You're talking about Pittsburgh as well too, and of course, they made a comeback most, I guess, maybe 20 years ago, somewhere around there.
Right.
But the Rust Belt cities, like with Buffalo, Cleveland,
Hmm.
Pittsburgh, Erie, and Gary, Indiana, Chicago, going up to Milwaukee, that a
Sure.
good portion have turned into artsy communities. Pittsburgh, you got
Right.
the brand new, spanking new PNC Park. It became a technological center. I think trying to think a few companies moved in. And of course, Buffalo, they beautified their area.
Hmm.
Cleveland with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they
Right.
become more of like a music culture. And Detroit, just took down Tiger Stadium and built Comerica Park. And they're
Right.
trying to rebuild it as a financial industry, not just, crank out GMs, Ford, Chevys, everything like that. And of course, Milwaukee and, Harley Davidson, Chicago, technological. It's like it's all changed in that time too. And I'm thinking about it's like I mean Pittsburgh's probably made the most progress than anybody else.
Right. I went I went back there this summer for my 50th and high school reunion.
Okay.
And two quick stories. One is just it has to do with the novel. When I went back, my I did a number of readings at the historical society and different things, bookstores and stuff. And when I went to the reunion, a number of my classmates came up to me and said, "So who is she? Who's the girl in there?" So that was fun. And at one point, I turned around and she was standing right behind me. So there we go. That's one story. There's my own personal story. The city there there was a huge renaissance in the 50s when they built the Civic Arena, when they did a lot of urban renewal downtown, tore out all the train tracks and everything on the point, put in a park, and put a number of the Alcoa building, the U.S. Steel building, and all that stuff went up, and malls went in, and so forth and so on. And then, as you said, in the 90s into the 2000s, there's this big tech and medical change. What it's created is a city, a very we talk about wealth disparity. It's a very two-tier city now. So there's the one hand, there's all the young folks, who are gentrified various areas, and then there are all the neighborhoods that are still there, and they look no different than they did when I left, that are still there, and nothing in that way has changed. You go back and you can just go from one block to another, and you go from one world to the next. Um, there's a Whole Foods here, and then there's a bunch of old 1890s row houses right across the street. So
Mm-hmm. And,
it's an interesting experience.
mhm. And certainly does as well too. And there's also two other books that you have Hubcat Collection Plate and also Dream Fishing, the Little Spokane. Tell us about those.
Okay, this will be even shorter. So I'll start with dream fishing. Dream fishing is surreal short stories, and I live above the Little Spokane River. It's a it's a I like little magical natural places, and there aren't a lot of people who live along it. They're protecting more and more of it with the conservancy, and in my area, a lot of that is protected. But it's just outside of the city, and so I decided right out of in before I retired actually. My oldest son died of a fentanyl overdose,
Oh my gosh.
and it yeah, it ripped me apart. And I just my whole notions of writing and whatever, I just threw it out the window and started over and just wrote whatever. And so there's some stories in there that have his fingerprints on them, so to speak. One about autism and so forth and so on. But it's simply imagine walking along a very, very small river, a very big creek, and where your mind just goes. And so I did a lot of historical and other sorts of natural history research. And then from that, took it places like there's a tiny little forgotten cemetery, and imagined what if that was a library where all the books that have never been published go, and all the shelves are empty, but when you go in, you hear the book speak to you if you're open to it.
Hmm.
Um, Stories that like that, as you work your way along, that go on that continuum from magical to realism, as you work your way along the river. And if you know the area, you know all the different spots, all the little creeks that flow in, and all the little places I'm talking about, all the
Hmm.
lakes that are connected to it, and all those things. So it's a lot of fun. I self-published that, so I learned how to do that, which was also a fun technological thing. And then Hubcap Collection Plate is poems. And poets do things called chapbooks where they kind of publish their own things in little 20-page segments, kind of
Uh-huh.
make their own books, like zines, so to speak. And this is a collection of six of those kinds of things into one. So they're different. Um, they're I would say in some ways they're Brodigan Ginsburg inspired. They're not hard to read. They're not the difficult poems of the world, but they're very Spokane oriented, just in time, in terms of time and place. The big one in the beginning is called Cup of Joe, which is um, it's a quiz for boomers to see how many cultural references they can get. Because it's just me. I started it like the last week I retired, and just started imagining sitting down with a cup of coffee and just everything that came to me. And it's all in there, from you know, starting with Brian Jones and Jimi Hendrix and oh, Janis Joplin's death, so forth and so on, into the psychedelia and all the way to whatever else came to me. So there's there's that book. There's one of them is written in response to my son's passing away, and that's in there.
Okay.
Um, which brings us up to the current one, if that's where you're
And
going,
that's
or
what
something else.
Right, yeah, and that is Whiskey Rebel. We'll get to that with Jeffrey Dunn in 1 minute. You listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SoundCloud Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's The Missing, The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, Amazon.com, keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. We'll be back with the amazing author Jeffrey Dunn of Whiskey Rebel after this time out. We're back with author Jeffrey Dunn of Whiskey Rebel here on the Mike Wagner Show, critically acclaimed author based in Spokane, Washington. And this book is basically a riveting portrait of characters left behind the American dream. And tell us more about that.
Yeah. So where do I start? Well, I'll just start with the plot. So it starts with characters, and there are two characters, and one is the speaker. So it's written in first person, of a young man trying to make some sense of what's just happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he grew up in the like at the Cascade Crest on the Cascade Mountains in the excuse me, the Cascade Mountains, and he's in the fog belt, so to speak, where it rains a lot, and the trees are 250 feet tall. And his father was a logger, his mother was a librarian in a little town called Packwood, which you can go visit sometime. They have a library,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's if you live in places like that, you're living there because you don't want to be around too many people, and you just want to be yourself and around other people who are just like that. And so he had to decide, when he was of age, finally, what was he going to do with his life? And he tried community college, and that didn't work. And then he tried the military, and he went to Iraq. And this is all backstory that's in the book. And he encounters an IED in a Humvee and gets his brain scrambled and comes back, and his parents have died. So he hears about panning gold on the dry side when you get on the other side of the Cascades.
Mm-hmm.
And so while he's panning gold, this guy comes along. He's the whiskey rebel. And he grew up in Western Pennsylvania. And in 1794, there was the American whiskey rebel that not many of us know about, rebellion. Many of us know about, but it was the first rebellion against the United States. We were 5 years old. And we
Mm-hmm.
already were raising an army to battle the United States because people like my relatives, the Scots Irish, didn't want to pay any whiskey tax because what was the point of the revolution? Um, so he's a direct descendant, and he thinks it's his his lot in life to make tax-free whiskey. So he's walking down the road and he sees this guy panning for gold and calls down, and this guy down there doesn't have anything to do. So they get together and they team up to make tax-free whiskey. And along the way, as you said, uh, the quirky characters come in. Uh, Punksy Tawny. Um, it's a bit of a joke there. It's that's where the groundhog lives. His parents' last name are Tawny, which is a last name, and they thought it'd be funny to name him Punksy. So Punksy's writing this book, and he has his idea of freedom, and Hamilton Chance, the whiskey rebel, has his, and these other characters have completely different ideas. And but they all get together because they're all singular human beings who are fairly feral. And if you go into central Washington and you go in the little towns and you go outside the little towns and you encounter the geology, what's called the Scablands, which is a story in itself, how that happened with giant floods from Montana that stripped all the soil off and it's down to basalt and all that. You can imagine somebody getting lost because they want to be and making whiskey and nobody would know they were doing it, and then finding somebody to fence it and sell it,
Hmm.
which they do as spirit whiskey. So it's tax free because it's religious.
Okay.
That's the book. There we go.
Okay.
What happens with these folks? Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I guess my question about it is that you simply have just just six people coming in and try and achieve something. And I guess the whole thing is that they want to achieve the American dream, but they're having a very, very, very
Yes, sir.
difficult time doing so. And one of my things is that they try every which way to break through the American dream. And of course, our question is that how do they end up achieving the American dream or their version of it?
Right, exactly. So the first thing that at this point in our history, I think is clear, except for those people who are political and somewhat delusional, is that and if you live in Wenatchee, Washington, if you live in so the places I'm thinking of, if you live in Ephrata, if you live in these towns in this area, um, the American dream comes to you if there's somebody, if you've got what they call generational wealth. Um, can you find examples of people who beat it? You can, but you won't find a lot of them if you look at things per capita. So they're all fully aware of what is preached to them in school, and Punksy writes about that. He philosophizes about what he was preached at, what the military posters told him. Like like my father, who came back from World War II, he came back very disillusioned because even though he knew that the fight that went on there was a righteous cause, uh, the actual when he came back, the old timers that he had to go talk to at the VFW didn't have a clue what was going on and had no idea what he'd been through, and didn't really care. And that was really really hard on him. He took a bullet in the head
Ooh.
on the battlefield and survived, which is a story in and of itself. So that kind of informs my sense, my father's stories, what's going on with Punksy. And and the others are all victims of some kind of trauma. So with the women, it's sexual trauma. With the Native American, it's cultural trauma. With Hamilton, it's both an he's ADHD, completely uh, distractible and whatever. He plays drums to calm. He'll pick up a bucket and just play it to calm down.
Uh-huh.
I taught a lot of kids like this. Perfectly lovely kids if you didn't try and make them do the stuff they weren't meant to do. Um, and but he's very focused on these things. So they're all trying to get somewhere and make it, and they, as happens with these sorts of people, they fall together because there's nobody else to fall together with, because they're
Uh-huh.
still social creatures. um, and even though they differ on what any of this means, and there's sexual tension because we got men and women, all that stuff going on. And the Native Americans got his bone to pick too, and he
Hmm.
expressed himself. So if your question is how do they achieve it, they don't. What they what they what they do achieve, I mean, while you're reading, and maybe that's a spoiler I shouldn't have let go, but what they're shooting for is who are they as human beings, as an identity in this world, and how do they reconcile, the rest of their lives given who they are. It's self-discovery with kind of like therapy, where they're all getting together and just letting it out without a therapist in the room
Mm.
because they can't afford a therapist.
That's interesting. It's almost like, trying to achieve American dream of capitalism, but they got their own version of American dream. Somebody dyslexic, somebody ADHD, where it's
Mhm.
like, hey, I built something, I got credit for it. That's the American dream. Or
Sure.
somebody won a national award but did not make a millionaire. That's the national dream. Or you
Right.
invented something which helps so many people, but you didn't make a lot of money. That was like American dream. So it's
Right.
not necessarily capitalism. It can be in other forms. It doesn't have to be material
Right.
or monetary or anything like that. It can be
Exactly.
just outright creative or social.
Yeah. And one of the women, they want the freedom to be themselves instead of having men telling them what to do, because that's worked out tragically for them growing up. One of the young ladies is a foster child, and the other one left home early to avoid the abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you make your way in the world? Your dream is just to be self-sufficient. If you don't heal, at least end the cycle of what's been done to you, for 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Or
Lots of different ways.
right, or it's just like, everybody's worried about the American dream. You hear about the house and everything like that. Some people like, the big house. Bill Gates has on his own island in Washington, or some are like the American dream, just a simple 2, 3 bedroom, one bath. Really simple. It could be just a plain old college or a cottage or kibbutz.
Right. That for many of these people, it's actually having a roof and having something to eat. I mean, that's a goal. I mean, Punxley sleeps on the ground a lot. Um, they're that. I just in the middle class world, in the middle class novel, we're fairly unaware and ignorant of how a good portion of the United States lives. And that kind of story generally doesn't get into fiction because fiction or novels are middle class art forms.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you write something like this, you're writing what I call anti-novels. All three of
Oh,
these
interesting.
all three of these books are anti-novels. They're books that try and do something with the novel that the novel wasn't originally designed to do, which has been something that's been done since 1850. But as anti-novels aren't exactly new, but it's not the kind of novel where you expect, the way you were taught in ninth grade with a plot triangle and character development, and they discover something, and somebody's going to have, get married at the end, and they'll all be successful. That's that sort of thing. That's that's not that's not the world of these characters. It just isn't. And I taught in two communities where that was 75% of the community. That's who they were. And
Mm-hmm.
then and many kids, 25% of them, much more like these characters. Um, and so they were kind enough to trust me and let me get to know them on a certain level. Never too much because I'm still a damn English teacher.
Oh,
I
you
had a
got that. You got that
oh
right.
I
Never question it. Yes.
No, absolutely. I had a student in Elma, Washington, who lived in the woods with his dad, who was in a wheelchair from from Vietnam. Bob Oliver, and Bob couldn't speak a sentence without a cuss word. And at the very end, when he went through graduation, he came up to me in his gown and he stuck his hand out and he shook me hand. He looked me right in the eye, narrowed his eyes, and he said, "Dunn, you're the best damn English teacher I ever had." And from Bob, that was a high compliment. So, because you couldn't rise above being a damn English teacher, that wasn't possible. So,
Or darn or shoot or
oh,
anything
I
like
know
that. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, but this is Bob, so I got to quote Bob. I would be doing Bob a disservice to English teacher his language. So, my apologies to your audience there.
Oh, that's perfectly okay. We all understand. And
Yeah.
lastly, what can people get from the book?
Oh my goodness. Well, the first thing with all that we've said about it, it's funny. So Hamilton Chance is an absolute hoot, and he's funny from the beginning, and he's funny from the to the end. He's not funny in stand up, but he's filled with malaprops. Um, his sense of the way he puts things together and tells stories is just an awful lot of fun. And Punksy's introspective. And so you get to figure out, what's going on with the characters because he's essentially being the reader trying to figure out what's going on. So you're not left in the dark necessarily. And the two
Okay.
women characters, I say, it sounds like it starts out as a male buddy book, but the women characters come in and they're very central. In fact, in some ways, I think they're the most important part of the book because they kick the boys' butts and cause them to reflect because there as so many women are to get by in these areas. Um, they do it on their own. They don't have kids yet, but they raise kids on their own because the men are not reliable because they drink or they're broken by their jobs,
Hmm.
which happens with loggers, what happens with an awful lot of working class folks. So they're they're tough. So there's a lot to love about this book.
Hmm. And a lot to learn as well too. Where can we find your book, Jeffrey, and how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find it anywhere. Amazon, there you go, Jeffrey Dunn. I have a website, jeffreydunn.com, where you can click and you can go to Barnes and Noble. You can go to other book sites. You can go to Amazon from there. Um, you can go to any independent bookstore. You can go to Barnes and Noble. You can order it because it's through Ingram Spark, which is your standard worldwide distribution network. You can go through there. I'm on, as you said, I do some writing on Medium. I have a Substack channel, which I'm under Culture Raven. There you go. There's my Raven again. Just my name
Raven
on
about the
Medium.
Raven, you could say. Yep,
Yeah,
Raven
you
about the
got it.
Raven.
Absolutely. So yeah. So it's not hard if you want to find me, or just Google it, and I'll come up.
Okay, we'll certainly do that. And we're here with Jeffrey Dunn of Whiskey Rebel here on the Mike Wagner Show. Jeffrey, a few more things. What else can we expect from you 2025 and beyond?
Yeah. Well, I'll keep writing some things on on both Medium and Substack. So and I'm started on something new, all about yeah. I won't give any spoilers. There you go, because it's got a long way to go, but I got to start. But I'm working on a big novel like Radio Free Olympia for the Spokane area. So I've got my two characters. I got the male and female to go back and forth. I've got my magical characters. This one is Mr. White, a mountain whitefish. He's my raven. I've got a vulture character that goes by Turk for Turkey Vulture. I'll have a dragonfly coming in here. They're all what gets translated as animal people
Okay.
from the Native American world, except that the Salish didn't call them animal people. It's a bad translation. So they're their own critter, but the mountain whitefish in the beginning comes right out and explains all that as to exactly what he is because he doesn't want the humans to get the wrong idea from that book that Jeffrey Dunn wrote. So he disses me right off the bat too. So good
Okay.
fun, good fun.
It sounds like a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
In my career, biggest influence. Wow. Um, I mentioned Richard Brodigan. Absolutely. I love Jethro Tull and Ian Anderson as growing up.
Hmm.
Tom Robbins and just the way his imagination worked and developed over time as a writer. So there's big things. And my wife and my son just throw them there. My wife is one special lady to live with me. She's very creative in all sorts of ways. My son's a musician, which
Nice.
brings a lot of sound. I was a music DJ and music director for a while, and though I don't have the fingers, I don't have the dexterity for music. I got a musician's brain, so
Right. Uh-huh.
he's teaching me a lot about musical composition, how that works. So, yep, there we go. That's a lot.
Nice. Okay, that is certainly amazing. And let's see, we got that. And who you consider biggest influence to career? Did I ask that? I forget.
Yes, you did.
Oh, okay. All right, you
Oh,
did. Okay.
biggest big just influence? Did you say?
Correct. Yeah, biggest influence.
Yeah, yeah. There we go. Yes, all those five. There you go.
Okay, well, got that. I must have my punksy moment right there too, and experience it. So,
Exactly.
and what's the best? And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Oh, the best advice I can give to anybody. Um, just experience as much of life as you can. We all have different brains and we all process differently. We all think we all want to be the same, but we're so different um, in the way we think and share and all of that. And that's all fantastic, but it only works if we like open up our like the radio dial to everything and just take it all in and let our minds go to work on it. I mean, that's my goal every day is just to do that and then just watch the magic of what your brain does with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very cool. It's very fun.
It really sounds like it, and a great thing as well too. Here with author Jeffrey Dunn of Whiskey Rebel here on the Mike Wagner Show. Jeffrey, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Learned a lot. Looking forward to having soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Laugh have you back. And what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your books?
I went through that. Yeah, I can say
Again,
it again. Oh,
again, yeah.
again.
Go
No, I'd
ahead.
love to do it again. No, no problems. Yeah, we usually need
Absolutely.
more than one hit. Oh, no, no, no. So, yeah, Amazon, Jeffrey Dunn. There you go, are the names of the book. But I have a website, jeffreydunnspokane.com. If you remember the city of Spokane, it's just jeffreydunnspokane.com. And it has links to my books. Go to the bookstore and order. You can order, through any bookstore from Barnes and Noble to your independent bookstore. It's all there. Medium and Substack have links. It's all good. So thanks for that extra opportunity there. JeffreyDunnSpokane.com. Thanks,
You
Mike.
got that. You got that right. And once again, Jeffrey, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Laugh have you back. We wish you all the best. And Jeffrey, you definitely have a great future ahead.
You too. Thank you.